What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video, and I do apologize for my throat. I still feel a bit shitty, but regardless of that, let's jump into the video. And today we're going to be talking about a casual players, being me, UFC 5 wish list. And mainly we're going to talk about arcade versus sim kind of thing, as well as some things that I want in UFC 5 at the end of the video. Now, I do play all the UFC games. The channel's very heavy boxing lately, or UFC Undisputed 3. Now, I still love MMA. I really do. I love MMA. I love boxing. I love combat sports. But let's be honest, UFC 4 and recent UFCs have been kind of lacking. Now, I've seen some top players, by top players I mean people like Marshall and Proxus, talk about these things. And while I could fight these guys, and I have fought Proxus, and I did drop him, I can say that proudly. In UFC 4 I dropped Proxus, he did beat my ass. Marshall would destroy me. I'd still love to fight Marshall though, let's be honest. But anyways, I would lose to them 100% of the time in all the UFC games because of how the current games are. They're very arcade game-esque. And once you figure them out, that is it. Now, like Prox said in his video, UFC Undisputed 3 is considered 1, the most simulation, and 2, the best UFC game ever made. Now, there must be a reason for that. It can't be because people prefer the color, the color gradient of that game. It's got to be because of the way the game plays. Now, while UFC Undisputed 3 is someone that's played it a lot, is the best, its striking is arguably weaker than UFC 4. UFC 4 has the more modern technology, the more modern striking. One thing that always lets UFC Undisputed 3 down, in my opinion, for striking is the fact that you cannot jab while walking forward. If you push forward and throw a jab, you will throw a hook. That's the biggest thing for me that's always slowed the pace of the game down. If you could do that, if it had, that, and you could throw a jab and straight while walking forward, the game would be, in my opinion, 10 times better than it is. And that's saying a lot because the game is already brilliant. But the simulation side of things, when it comes to the striking and when it comes to the ground game, is second to none. But surely a game being the most sim, while simultaneously being the best, must mean something, and EA needs to start taking that into consideration. Now, for me, as a casual player, what I mean by that is a lot of career mode. Some online, mainly with friends, other content creators, just having fun, having some good matchups. I just don't enjoy UFC 4 at all. I don't think it's fun. I don't think it is entertaining. It's hard for me to support the UFC content creators because the game is so unfun to play and it's unfun to watch. Now, I love when like Marshall will do his simulation with John Jones, or when Proxus will say use Calvin Kattar or Nick Diaz and go to war with them. I like watching that. It's entertaining. Can I watch the UFC 4 Pro League? Absolutely not. No matter how much I try to support ESFL, I just cannot watch it. It is just boring. It's not a fun game to play. It's not a fun game to watch. And that's as a casual player. This is not as someone that's being really nitpicky. But that's just, for me, the game just is not fun. Now, for me, in fighting games, at least fighting games where it's based off real life, I'm not going to talk about the Mortal Kombat and the Tekken, because those are arcade fighters. That is fine. Those are button bashers, whatever. But for me, simulation is where it's fun. When I'm simulating fights with people, when I'm like, okay, I'm going to use, even if it's like 2 low-rated fighters or 2 mid-range fighters, you use Paul Felder and Dan Hooker. Me and Grapple have done it once. We played a few matches, and we had so much fun in those fights. Even though he lost, we had loads of fun. When I fought Jay, I think it was, even though I lost, had so much fun, because it was like, oh, you use Clay Guida, someone you really probably couldn't use that much in ranked, and really replicate his style. Now I'll use someone else and I'll try replicate their style, try keep you at range. Okay, so let's see whose game plan comes into action, and it's so much more fun. You don't tend to focus on the outcome when you're having such a simulated fight, because it's just the way it is. You tend to focus on just the fight, and you're like, cool, that was a cracker, GG, let's go again. And for me, the reason it's always fun is due to a few reasons. There's always that risk of being slept, even when you're winning. One punch can absolutely change a fight. Every fight is different. You need to adjust. And that's not just like turning takedown defense, or, okay, I see he's throwing this uppercut, so let me move. Real adjustments, real proper adjustments, like you would in a real boxing match or in a real MMA fight. As well as, yes, stats are important, but player skill is more important in simulation, because you do run that risk of getting KO'd. If I am John Jones and you are Francis Ngannou, I run that risk of getting slept with that fat overhand. I know that, but for me, that makes it fun. Now, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to keep it close. I'm not going to want to be at your range where you can leap with a big hook. I'm going to want to keep it close, be in the clinch with you. You're going to want to avoid that and keep me at bay with your jab that then you then aren't able to throw as many power shots, because if you throw power shots, I'm able to go under them, maybe take you down, get that double underhooked in. That for me, that's what makes it fun. Where you're playing against an Ngannou, you're playing against a Derek Lewis, you're playing against a Sean O'Malley, you're playing against whoever, a TJ Dillashaw, or Dominic Cruz, and you know, okay, we know what Dominic's like. He's got so many tools, but we know his movement is key. Now, how do we stop that? We boot him in the leg. And, you know, all right, now he knows that's my game plan. Now, how is he going to adjust? Is he going to take the leg kick and throw a straight at the same time to counter that? Not just to check the leg kick. Is he going to throw a shot at the same time to counter it? Because that happens. You know, I don't like that if you throw a leg kick, it just stops everything in motion. I still want, you know, I feel like often you see it where someone will drop to catch the leg kick and throw a shot. And that's not so much checking it. That's still taking the shot on the leg. You just have to weigh up your pros and cons when you fight in such a simulation manner. Now, I see people not wanting sim, people wanting more of a sim/arcade mix. But for me, if the game is based off real life with real fighters, it needs to do the sport justice, in my opinion. Now, I appreciate there's games like I played on the channel recently called Big Rumble Box and Creed Champions. Those are pretend characters. Ivan Drago, he's not a real person, he's an actor. Rocky Balboa, he's not a real person, he's an actor. Those are all just make-believe characters, and it's a very arcadey feel boxing game, but it does what it says on the tin. They don't claim to be the new innovative way of mixed martial arts, then spammy as fuck. They are an arcade game, it is over the top, they've got that on their label, we know what we're getting into when we play that game. Now, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but I do believe a lot of the UFC 4 top players or pro players don't want sim because they know they'll fall off. Because they don't have that ability to just figure out the best mechanic and abuse it. For instance, when UFC 4 first dropped, the submissions were whack, the clinch was horrendous, and people just done it because it was the easiest way to win. Now, if there is no mechanic that's abusable, or at least not too abusable, and everything has a counter to it, then some of these pro players will struggle because they tend to hurt you with spammy things and put you out with what looks like skill. Don't get me wrong, there are some top players that will adjust no matter what, and I'm sure, I'm not really good with the pro players, but I'm sure some of them will go on to be great in Esports Boxing Club. And if UFC 5 comes out and it's simulation, some of them will go on to be great in that because they just have a knack for martial arts games. That is cool. And then obviously you see people talking about how sim could be easier to abuse. Well, what if that UFC 4 clan? I never forget that. I never remember their name. I don't know, T4 something. What if they abuse the ground game? But that those guys are going to abuse the ground game. They've done it in UFC 4. What if you get simulation and they just play Khabib and they abuse the ground game? But you wouldn't say Khabib spams ground game in real life. And also, the fight starts on the feet. You know, that's the thing. And with a simulation game, it's not as simple as just a simple single leg, a simple double leg where you do turning takedowns. You know, in UFC Undisputed 3, you somewhat have to fight for your takedowns. You have to mix it up. You have to get them against the cage to take them down. It just, something about the takedowns and the transitions just feels so much better in Undisputed 3 compared to UFC 4. And if a top player takes you down with Khabib and they maul you, so be it. But the problem is Khabib's ground and pound isn't ground and pound to the sense where it knocks you unconscious like UFC 4. It would be not weak shots, but they hurt you enough to where you feel them, but they don't knock you out. So that's what would happen in let's say a simulation MMA game. You would have Khabib on top of you and he'd just be holding you down. You can't do much. You can defend yourself, you can try and transition. Every time you transition, he'll transition again. You transition, he transitions again. Land a few shots on you, you defend yourself. Maybe you just hold tight and the ref doesn't let you do anything, but he'll slide you up against the cage. That gives you an opportunity to maybe try and sit up. There's so many more variables when it comes to it with an in real life. Or even if you put Khabib in Undisputed 3, you would see such a different outcome with everyone that played him, because sometimes people he wouldn't be able to take everyone down. Some people would throw the knee, some people would throw the uppercut as he comes for you. Some people would just move in and out of range, or hold him in the clinch and just deny whatever he's trying to do. Just get him in that Muay Thai, knee him in the head and hurt him. But now that we've spoke about that and you know, my thoughts on it, and you know how, you know, don't get me wrong, I am very heavy simulation. If it comes out and it's very arcadey, I will still play it, of course, because I like playing all the new UFC games. I like the roster. The striking in UFC 4 is somewhat decent. You know, I wasn't a huge fan on UFC 1 or 2. I didn't mind 3, in all honesty. I still believe that we need to follow the path of UFC 3/UFC 4 striking, because I generally liked UFC 3 striking. I felt like it felt more composed than UFC 4, especially because the slip hook was ridiculous in UFC 4. But, you know, anyways, let's go off that and move on to some things that I'd like to see in UFC 5, more specific to my actual play style. Things first, a replayable career. You couldn't replay the UFC 4 career. It was fucking shit. Let's just be complete. Drop that shit from UFC 4. EA won't watch this and they won't listen. But let's just be honest. Don't fucking do that shit again. You clearly cannot write characters. You clearly cannot write a story to save your life. Just stick to the basic fight night line of you're an amateur, you're in Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender, whatever you want it to be, I don't care. You're in WFA, you're in Cage Warriors, whatever. Then you go to the UFC, you have some fights, you have some call-outs, and carry on. The training was tedious after the first time. The characters were terrible. Your character spoke, but seemed like he had about 4 brain cells to rub together. Your coach, Davis, always wore commando trousers in a unification champ fight against the notorious Conor McGregor. It was ridiculous. Like, there was nothing to it. The story was crap. The characters were crap. Just make a career that's replayable, because they cannot write characters to save their damn life. Ground game, just copy it from UFC Undisputed 3, and that sounds shitty, but the transitions were perfect. The possibilities feel endless when you're on the ground in that game. You have to fight for takedowns, you have to fight for your transitions. You can reverse any given transition. There were so many positions that you'd play for a few hours and you'd go, I didn't know that was there. You know, and you throw weaker strikes, you throw strong strikes from every position. There is so many better ways to transition, to maneuver on the ground, the way it flows. That's the thing. Sometimes with games, it's not always about the way it looks, about the way it feels, the way it flows. And it just flows and feels just amazing in Undisputed 3. Now for the striking, UFC 3 and UFC 4 is by far their best work, although that's not saying much. But to avoid fuck-ups, let's just stick to it. In my opinion, UFC 3 had the better basic combos, but like I said, I am a casual player. If there's a pro player that says, no, UFC 4 has better, striking, then I'll say okay. For me, I just felt like UFC 3 was more fun, but that could just be because the game felt better and was more enjoyable to play, and I was able to play it more than UFC 4. For me, I just say stick to that kind of line, just tidy things up a little bit, and maybe get rid of the head movement from UFC 4. I don't feel like the head movement works in UFC 4. In my opinion, I just feel like I mean, it does work in some sense, but the slip hook thing was so abusable. But then again, a lot of people said the game felt like a beta when it came out, and it was. We all paid 50 quid for a beta, but, that being said, I just say stick to what they got, maybe go back to a little bit of the Fight Night strike, and but if you're going to pick a Fight Night, go Fight Night round 4. I hate when people play Fight Night Champion, and then that's all they know. I've played every single Fight Night game in the last week, so trust me, Fight Night round 4, in my opinion, has the best strike, and Fight Night round 3 has the best heavy shots, but for me, UFC 4, Fight Night round 4 is by far the best simulation boxing game that there is right now, and that's saying something, because there's not many, there's not any actually. For me though, with my striking, I'm a bit boring. I like a slow process, I like a feeling out process, where some rounds you do only throw 26 shots, or you only land like 15 punches around. I'm okay with that, I quite like it. I don't mind a bit of a slow feeling out process, like kind of tripping people, getting the takedowns to win on the scorecards kind of thing. I don't mind that. I've really got no issue against it. It's better than throwing 180 punches and you miss 75% of them, but you've still got a full stamina bar. It's better than that. So I would rather, I would rather a slow process of striking where, you do always run that risk of getting caught. And I feel like if you do run the risk of getting one punch KO'd, like in Undisputed 3, which was always amazing, that then makes people a bit more cautious, and they're not just going to throw 75 strikes in 2 minutes, and by the end of round 1 they've thrown 190, they've landed 90. Round 2 they're back full stamina, they throw 210, they land 110. That will kind of stop people from doing that, because if one punch can end a fight really, really quickly, not just kind of rock someone and really flatten them, like fucking flatten them, then that could kind of slow people down, and they won't want to just spam punches as much as they do it. Now, unique animations for most fighters, if not key fighters, not just the same shit for everyone. I don't accept it that the fact they just have one unique animation for Conor, maybe a Wonder Boy kick, maybe a basic Diaz 1-2, and they call that unique animations. I don't like that. Make the most of switch starts with certain characters, like in Undisputed 3. I mean, pretty much every character has at least one new move that you get when you switch stance, whether it be John Jones, Anderson Silva, different takedown maneuvers when you switch stance. Just make the most of it. Just use your brain. And yeah, I feel like with the size of EA, they have potential. And, you know, people do bag on EA. I'd like to see them do well because we all want a good game. We really do. And I appreciate there's some people that don't want arcade, don't want sim. But then people that are saying we want arcade, there's people that don't want arcade. It's not always versus. It's just sometimes we need to think what's best and what is better for the fan base. What will do more justice for the sport. And as the UFC are really taking on their Pro League and the ESFL are really picking it up, what's going to be best for the Pro League? You know, I believe simulation would be best. I would think that'd be more entertaining to watch. I think, you know, even people that don't really game would want to watch it because it would be like a real experience where they're watching it and they're able to see fights that would never have happened in certain weight classes, and they're getting to watch the best players these fighters and entertain. I think that would be where it's at. But, you know, people were saying about the ESFL still pulling 1,000 viewers. That's great. That is awesome and well done to the guys at ESFL. Generally, I mean that. But I feel like if UFC 5 follows the path of UFC 4, ESFL will just be a thing of the past. And I really don't want that to happen because all the guys that run it are really cool. They work their fucking ass off. But UFC 4, the way it's going and the way the UFC games seem to be going, ESFL will become very unentertaining. The only people watching it will be other pro players just to try and show support. Because even people that want to support it aren't going to make time for it because it's just not fun to watch. The events are put together brilliantly, but the game is not fun to watch. I'm not bagging on the players either. The players are all fun to watch, but the game just isn't, man. Like I love Marshall, I really do, but even sometimes I'm just like, you know, oh, this game, man, just like, I don't know, I just want to be like, Marshall, go back to UFC 3. I know people say UFC 4 is better, but like, I just want to see him, you know, I really want to see him in a full simulation experience. That's what I want to see Marshall Mind. I want to see him in a full MMA experience and say to him, here's this full simulation experience. Now, I want to see a video where you use hoist Gracie. Now, take the jiu-jitsu skills you've learned in real life and use it in game, and let's see what you do with that. And, you know, give Ed Parker, is Max Holloway in full simulation? I don't know. I see some pro players saying they don't want simulation. They don't, you know, whatever, they don't care. You know, I'm sure there's some players that will just be good regardless because they will learn, they will adapt. But, you know, I don't know, man. I just hope they don't fuck the game up, really. Like, if it comes out and it's a bit arcadey, but it's fun and it's good and it's enjoyable and it's not spammy, then I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, you know, the thing is with being spammy, there needs to be a counter. You know, you can juggle people in Mortal Kombat, but that's the reason they added Block Breaker, where your meter fills up and you block break and it pushes the opponent back, which then gives you a full reset. That stops juggling, things like that could be considered spammy or abusable. But there is nothing that stops something spammy or broken in UFC 4. There's no counter for it. It's not like you can be on your back and illegally knee them in the head and the ref has to stand you up to deduct a point. That just doesn't exist. But, you know, that would be something cool. But, you know, that doesn't exist. So once someone's got you in a spammy position or a broken position, you know, you're somewhat fucked. And, you know, that's just not fair. It's just not fun. But, you know, that's my thoughts as a casual player, because I know a lot of pro players and top players and Division 20s have all been talking about it. But this is my opinion from, you know, people that are, for you guys that are probably like me, where you just want to play it with your friends, you just want to have fun, but UFC 4 just doesn't feel fun. Something about it just doesn't feel enjoyable to play anymore. But yeah, that's my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you as always for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.